Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Get arrested for a DUI, cover it up, they want to run for re-election, should have remembered to renew your domain. One random weeknight nearly 30 years ago, my uncle was driving home from church with 4 of his kids. My aunt had just given birth to their 6th child, who was only 10 days old. So she stayed home that night with the 2 youngest. I'm told that my uncle saw the car speeding towards him and attempted to avoid collision by driving off the road and ending in a ditch. The driver was drunk and even though they weren't on the road, they were still hit head-on. The accident killed 3 of my cousins, my uncle and the 2 occupants who had been drinking in the other car. Only one of my cousins survived the accident, but she didn't walk away unscathed. She suffered severe head trauma she'll never fully recover from and spent about a year of her life in a wheelchair. On top of that, she had to relearn how to write, walk, and talk all over again. One night, a couple drinks and 6 people died. This is the primary view I have when I hear about drinking and driving. That's my lead into my revenge story and has no personal relation to the target of my revenge. I am sharing a little history so you know my stance on people who drive drunk. If it wasn't clear, screw drunk drivers. Fast forward to last year. I'm browsing Reddit and see the story about a judge who was arrested for a DUI. The DA said he didn't have enough evidence to bring charges. A reporter showed him the police dashcam video, to which he stated during the interview if he had seen that video earlier, he would have pursued charges. At the time, he could still bring charges. No charges were ever filed, let alone dismissed, with prejudice and the statute of limitations hadn't expired either. It was clear this was an abuse of power and government officials covering for their own. All of this was established in a Reddit post that brought it to my attention. I did a little research of my own on this judge. Found her Facebook page and a couple posts linking to a website. The domain for her website had expired. 10 minutes later, I was a new owner of that domain, which was also her full legal name. Since then, I've been using it to retell the whole story about her avoiding a DUI with a nice collection of all the news articles and videos I could find. Right down to the petition she filed to remove the arrest from her permanent record one day after the statute of limitations expired. I won't link the domain, but if you know of this person, you can find it pretty easily. I am not even in the same state as this judge, but I don't care. You drink and drive, then want to get re-elected in 2018? I'm going to screw with those chances as hard as I can. Next story. Karen tries to mess with special air service veteran. So one day I was busy buying groceries and the like. So I park in this one parking spot and not even 2 seconds later, this other guy pulls into the space next to me. I soon got out of my car, Hyundai Getz 2008, powder blue second-hand. This dude shoots out of his car and scrambles to where I am. Looking around in my car, he finds nothing wrong with it. His car was a Mitsubishi Triton, complete with front and rear pull bar. Something wrong? I ask him. No, I just thought I may have scratched your car. Sorry for that, just kinda in a hurry. This dude had the nicest attitude you'd ever expect from someone built like John Cena. But to me, he seemed like a teddy bear with muscles. I go about my shopping and he does the same, not paying any mind to the strange events that happened just now. So I finish my shopping and when I get to my car, I find I have been parked in by a silver Toyota Corolla, not the new one. I can see that the woman is still in the car. So I put my groceries in the boot of my car and tap on her window. Winding it down, she glares at me with the eyes of a typical Karen. "Can you please move your car? I wanna go home now."
Well, you can wait. Didn't anyone teach you manners?
I was now agitated at this point. I was not really the shopper type, but this woman just snapped at me as if I was a dog. I didn't wait too long as the same man was seen pushing his car to his car. The minute he got to his car, Karen sprang into action.
Do you have any idea how long I waited?
Karen asks him. "And you are?"
I don't feel the need to tell you my name. Get out of this parking spot now.
"Well, you can wait. As you can see, I still need to pack my stuff."
You can do that later. I need this parking space.
At this point, he was physically annoyed by how this Karen was acting. "Lady, firstly, who gave you the right to speak to me in such a manner? Secondly, I don't see your name on this parking spot. Rule of law, first come, first serve."
I have been parking here for 2 weeks. Therefore, this is my parking space. Now move or I will move you.
He scoffs and says, "I'd like to see you try." At that moment, Karen decided to mess with him, and she pushed him. I say push, but more it was like pushing a brick wall. This guy did not even budge at all.
That was a warning. Don't make me call the cops on you. A delinquent like you will not survive my wrath.
She tells him, "Was that your best shot?" He asks amusingly.
Like you can do better.
"Very well. Let me show you my shot. And for your information, I'm a former SAS." At this point, he looked to see me standing there very patiently. Walking over to me, then he cleared his throat. "I'll see to it that you get home. And sorry for what you're about to see." He climbed into his car and started it up. She didn't even get the chance to move her car. Throwing his car into reverse, he slammed into her car and began to push it out of the way. Karen freaked out as her car was being pushed out of the way, banging on the dude's hood that she threw verbal insults at him. I was already in my car before he started his car up and began this whole thing. Finding a big enough gap for myself, I did expert driving and began moving out. And now Karen slams her hands on my hood.
You're not going anywhere. You're now a witness. He wrecked my car.
I tell her, I did not see anything, and I drove off. For your information, I haven't received any court summons or anything like that. So that veteran put Karen in her place and wrecked her car. Glorious. Next story. Guy steals $400 of gas, but I get the last laugh. Backstory. I used to work at a marina when I was in high school that sold gas and allowed people to dock for free if they wanted to. Now one day a guy comes in on a pretty big boat and gets a lot of gas, like $400 worth of gas. He comes to the counter to pay and gives me $400 in $100 bills, and I accept him and he goes on his merry way. Fast forward a week or so and I'm told by my boss that the bills he paid in were all counterfeit bills. Unfortunately, as he paid in cash, we had no way of tracking him down. So we think he just got away with stealing $400 worth of gas. That is until this idiot comes back after about a month and a half, thinking he got away with stealing the gas. When he comes back in, I recognize the guy and tell my co-worker to call the police right away. However, I knew that this guy would just leave if I let on that I had recognized him and we had discovered his plot to get free gas. So I decided to pretend I don't recognize him. Luckily for me, this guy asks to dock the boat for an hour or so on our dock, and I tell him it's not a problem. Now it is policy to get the name and phone number of customers using free dockage, as well as asking that they leave their keys in the boat so that we can move the boat to a different dock if needed. He complies to all of the rules and leaves his boat, and he leaves his keys with me. After probably about 15 minutes of waiting, the police show up on the dock and ask my boss where the guy is. My boss tells them he just left his boat, but we have his number, and we can get him to come back to the boat and he then instructs me to do just that. At this point, I was angry at this dude for making me look dumb, for basically losing $400. So I call and tell him, "Hey, this is OP from Arena. It seems as though there is an issue with your engine and it seems to be smoking. For those that don't know boats that well, engines are very expensive. And this one in particular was a 350 horsepower Yamaha engine, which is top of the line. So that man got back to that boat in record time. When he got back to the boat, the look on his face when he saw two cops waiting for him was just priceless. He tried to play it off and act like he had done nothing wrong, and that he didn't know why the police were there. But that was short-lived, as they arrested him and told him why he was being arrested. Turns out the guy had almost $2,000 in counterfeit $100 bills on him. What a jerk. Next story. Taking down Queen Karen, the president of the HOA. Okay, this happened years ago, 1985 to be exact. I was 45 when this happened, 81 now. So after my second retirement, I started doing property management. I bought this 2,500 square foot luxury home with the sole intention of renting it out. Now I didn't know how bad the HOA was, but when I became the owner I soon found out. This all took place in 2 years' time. Karen would literally have a problem with everyone in a neighborhood. Trash cans left out? Fined. Loud music after 10 p.m.? Fined. Yard sale without permission? Fined. Removing dead plants and replanting without approval? You get fined. It went on and on like this. Now the community could run for the HOA board, but the HOA board chose the president. 6 out of the 10 members on the board liked Karen, so she always kept her job. Her husband was in the medical field, so he made a lot of money. It got to a point too where she was called Queen Karen in the neighborhood and her dishing out HOA fines. Now I used to go in person to collect the rent, because the people that rented my house were good friends of mine. I did this for months, so I would park my car by the front of the garage. My friends and I were having some music on, but it wasn't that loud. Queen Karen came over driving her golf cart and said,
"Excuse me?
"Yeah?"
You have to turn that music down, it's too loud."
I told her that it was 8 p.m. and that music that's even loud can be played until 10. She wasn't having it and demanded that I do so. Now my friends and I kept the music going and we were enjoying ourselves. She proceeded to get angry and she fined me. Now most people will take the abuse and pay the fine, but not me. I went to the HOA board and contested the fine and won. From that point on, Queen Karen made it her personal mission to destroy me. She would whine and fuss about every little thing. I fought what I could, but I did end up paying for some of it. She also went after my tenants, which made things worse for me. I had to sit down with my friends one night to discuss the problem. When I parked my car, Queen Karen came over in her robe and said I have to park somewhere else. I did because I didn't want to start anything. We see her go back into her house and there was a man there that isn't her husband. We were being nosy and we came to the conclusion that she was cheating on her husband. Spoiler alert, she was. My friends and I told Queen Karen's husband. I'm sure he did some investigation because 3 months later, they divorced and he was moving his stuff out. Now gossip said that Queen Karen got nothing because she was the one that cheated and she didn't have a job, so she wasn't entitled to the money. From this point on, Queen Karen had a massive decline in the quality of life that she had. She sold her car and got a cheaper one and she adopted different dressing habits. But even after the divorce, she never got a job and she was still living somewhat better than everyone else. Fast forward to 1986 in February. Queen Karen and the HOA have been giving out fines for every obscure things and increased monthly dues. Having trash cans out a couple of hours early or after the trash man left would result in a fine. Targeting people that had older or dirty cars goes on and on. Me and the other people in the community were sick of that nonsense that she and the HOA were bullying. So at the next meeting, we voiced our concerns. Queen Karen said that the community had been falling behind on repairs and that the dues and increase in fines were necessary, especially if people weren't maintaining their own property. She said that in the yearly budget report and that we should have read it. The other best residents and I went and read the statement. Now none of us read it because we take it as junk mail and disregard it. But we read the whole statement cover to cover. Queen had increased the HOA budget 15% and where that extra money was going remained unknown. We went over to her house the next day and demanded to know where the extra money was being spent, but she refused several times. She closed the door and went back to watching TV. We filed a joint lawsuit to find out where the money was going, and in June we found out. Cue the revenge. Queen Karen was living off HOA fines and dues. The increase is because she was running out of money. She still didn't have a job, so she embezzled from the HOA so she wouldn't have to get a job. She gets busted. We called the police for her embezzling the money. She was charged with fraud and extortion. The neighbors and I filed a joint lawsuit against Karen to get reimbursement as well. And because she had no money, she had to mortgage her house to pay us all. She later went to federal prison for 6 years with no parole. And because she went away, no one was paying for her house. The bank foreclosed on it, and it was bought by someone else. And so when she got out in 1992, she was homeless. Honestly, the majority of us didn't want to ruin her life like this. Had she toned down the excessive fines, we would have let her be. But she had to double down and steal from us because she didn't want to get a job like everyone else. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.